One morning, a man in his 60s woke up before the sun had risen. He sat quietly by the window, a warm cup of coffee resting on the table. Outside, the city was still silent, but inside his heart was already restless. Unfinished work, unanswered calls, worries about health, children, and even yesterday's sorrows, all of it seemed to return at once. He reached for his phone, the familiar habit, checking messages, scrolling through the news, reading words that only made his chest feel heavier. But then, very gently, he paused. In that moment of silence, he realized something he had rarely noticed in all these years. The very first moments of the morning are the doorway that shapes the mood of the entire day. In Buddhism, the morning is not just the start of routine. It is an invitation to return to the present, a chance to renew the mind. A moment where you can choose peace before the world chooses chaos for you. And today, here on Wisdom Quiet, we will walk through that doorway together softly, calmly, yet with great strength. I will share with you morning truths, practical lessons, common mistakes to avoid, and ways to turn each sunrise into the beginning of wisdom and peace. If these reflections touch your heart, leave a gentle mark, press like, subscribe to Wisdom Quiet, and share this video so peace can ripple outward to others. And don't forget to leave a comment with your own experience, because every story is a precious seed that helps our community grow together in quiet wisdom. Let us begin this journey, without hurry, without pressure, simply as a homecoming back to yourself. Part 1. The sacred pause before the world begins. Have you ever noticed the very first moment of your day before the phone lights up, before anyone asks for your attention? That quiet breath, often ignored, is like a doorway, and the way you step through it can shape everything that follows. Most of us rush. We open our eyes and immediately carry yesterday's worries into today's peace. We reach for the phone, scroll through headlines, and let the world decide our mood before we've even remembered to breathe. But Buddhism reminds us, each morning is not just routine. It is a chance to begin again, to return to the present. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. The very first thoughts of your morning are seeds, and those seeds grow into the day you live. Picture this: dawn slowly rising, like a lotus opening on still water. You wake up, and instead of rushing, you sit for just 3 breaths. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult. One man told me this small habit changed his life. 3 breaths before speaking, 3 breaths before touching the phone. He said it felt like placing his feet firmly on the ground before walking into the storm of the day. The lesson here is gentle but powerful. If you do not claim this sacred pause, the world will claim it for you. And once the rush begins, it's harder to return. By cherishing this quiet, you give yourself the gift of starting the day with presence, not pressure. And when you know how to honor this pause, the next step naturally unfolds, awakening to the power of presence itself, the realization that simply being alive in this very moment is enough. Part 2. I am here, I am alive. The power of presence. When you woke up this morning, where was your mind? Was it here, in the softness of your bed? Or was it already chasing yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's worries? In truth, most of us rarely arrive in the present. We wake up, and our thoughts run ahead. The bills, the deadlines, the endless to-do list. Or they run backward, replaying old mistakes. Yet Buddhism reminds us, the only true place we can live is now. The Buddha once said, do not dwell in the past, Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Presence is not about perfection. It is about pausing, even for a breath, to notice, I am here, I am alive. This moment is enough. A woman once shared with me her struggle with morning anxiety. Before she even stood up, her chest felt heavy, her mind already racing. But she tried something simple. Each morning she placed a hand on her heart and whispered those words. At first, it felt awkward, but soon she noticed her breath slowing. Science confirms, this research shows, that even 3 deep, mindful breaths can lower heart rate and reduce cortisol, the stress hormone. For her, it was like setting down a heavy bag she didn't know she was carrying. The small lesson is this: you don't need the perfect morning, the perfect house, or the perfect circumstances to feel gratitude. If your eyes open, if your breath flows, you already have enough. Gratitude begins here. And when you start your day with presence, you step into the world lighter, calmer, freer. And from this foundation, another truth emerges. Peace is not decided by what happens outside of you, but by the calm you cultivate within. That is where our journey takes us next. Part 3. Why outside chaos doesn't have to control you. Have you ever noticed how the smallest outside event, a careless word, a traffic jam, a late bill can take over your whole day? It feels as if the world holds the strings to your peace. But Buddhism gently reminds us, it is not the outside chaos that steals our calm. It is how we choose to respond. Think of 2 people stuck in the same line of cars. One clenches the wheel, muttering in anger, every minute feeling like fire. The other leans back, takes 3 slow breaths, and lets the radio play an old favorite song. The traffic is the same. The difference is the inner world. The Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Peace is like a lake. When the wind stirs, waves appear on the surface, but the water beneath remains still. Your mind can be the same, no matter how noisy the outside. The depth within you can stay calm. I once met a retired teacher who told me she used to lose sleep over the smallest arguments. A neighbor's complaint could sit heavy in her chest for days. But after learning mindfulness, she began pausing before reacting. One day, when the same neighbor spoke harshly, she simply breathed, smiled gently, and replied, "Thank you for telling me." Later, she laughed, saying, "It felt like putting down a bag of rocks. I didn't need to carry anymore." The small lesson here is simple. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is learning to let small things stay small, to breathe before reacting, to choose clarity over chaos. And once we learn to quiet the storms outside, a deeper question arises. What about the storms inside the harsh voice of judgment we carry within? That is where our journey continues. Part 4. The Hidden Voice. From harsh critic to kind friend. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the harshest voice in your life is not from other people, but from yourself? The hidden critic inside often says things we would never dare to say to a friend. You're not good enough. You should have done better. You'll never get this right. Because it is our own voice, we tend to believe it without question. But Buddhism reminds us, compassion is not only for others. If we do not offer kindness to ourselves, our path toward peace will always remain incomplete. The Buddha taught that, just as we care for a dear child, we must learn to care for our own hearts with the same tenderness. I once met a businessman who looked successful to the world, yet every morning he woke up replaying small mistakes and awkward phrase in a meeting, a decision he second-guessed. He told me, It's like living with a courtroom in my head, and I'm always the one on trial. But then he tried a new practice. Each morning he placed his hand gently on his chest and whispered, "I will treat myself with kindness, not judgment." At first it felt strange, even uncomfortable, but gradually he noticed a change when he slipped up. Instead of hearing "you're a failure," he began to hear "you're learning." Science confirms this transformation. Research on self-compassion shows that people who practice kindness toward themselves experience less anxiety and depression, and greater resilience in the face of stress. Just like a flower that blossoms in sunlight rather than harsh winds, the mind flourishes when nourished with gentleness instead of criticism. The small lesson here is simple. You cannot bully yourself into peace. Speak to yourself as you would to a beloved friend, and mistakes will turn into lessons rather than chains. And when we begin to soften the inner voice, we uncover something deeper, the realization that everything we've been searching for outside strength, clarity, even peace has already been within us all along. That is where we now turn. Part 5. You already have what you're looking for. It's a strange truth of life. Many of us live like thirsty travelers, drinking salt water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. No matter how much money, recognition, or comfort we gain, there's often a whisper inside that says, "It's not enough." In Buddhism, this restless hunger is called craving, and the Buddha taught that craving is the root of suffering. The mistake we make is believing that fulfillment lives outside of usin, the next purchase, the next promotion, the next compliment. But the Dharma offers a radical shift. Everything you're searching for has already been planted within you. The ancient texts say our true nature is like a jewel covered in dust. The jewel is never garnet, only needs to be uncovered. In the same way, your strength, compassion, and wisdom have always been part of you, even if fear or self-doubt sometimes hide them. I once spoke with a grandmother who felt crushed by comparison. Each morning she woke up, grabbed her phone, and scrolled through images of people who looked wealthier, healthier, more successful. By the time she set her phone down, her heart already felt heavy with failure. But something shifted when she began a small practice before touching her phone. She opened a notebook and wrote down one quality she already carried. One morning it was, "I am patient." Another, "I am resourceful." At first, it felt awkward, almost forced. But after a few weeks, those words became real to her. She no longer started her day with emptiness, but with enoughness. Here's the small lesson. You are not broken. You are not lacking. You are layered like a lantern covered in dust. When you take time to notice even one light within yourself, the dust begins to fall away, and the glow returns. And let's be honest, so many of us fall into the trap of chasing enoughness in the wrong places. We buy more things, compare ourselves to others, or push our bodies and minds until exhaustion. But the problem with chasing outside is that the finish line keeps moving. What feels like enough today will feel like too little. Tomorrow, the freedom comes when you stop chasing and start recognizing. When you trust that the patience, resilience, and kindness you admire in others already live within you. Gratitude research even confirms this. People who focus on their inner strengths report greater happiness and lower stress, not because life outside changed, but because they changed how they saw themselves. So tomorrow morning, instead of asking, "What do I need from the world today?" ask yourself, "What light inside me can I draw on today?" You may be surprised by how much abundance you already carry, and when you begin to live with that sense of inner sufficiency, another truth naturally comes into view. Everything changes, which leads us to our next reflection, the freedom of impermanence. Part 6. The truth of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. Trying to hold on to life's moments is like trying to hold water in your hands. No matter how tightly you grip, it always slips through your fingers. This is the truth of impermanence. Everything changes. Nothing lasts forever. At first, this truth can feel unsettling. We want to freeze the happy moments, to keep loved ones close, to stay young and healthy forever. And yet, life has its own rhythm, one of constant change. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is not a curse, but a gift. Because if nothing lasts forever, then neither pain nor sorrow can hold us prisoner. Think of the seasons. Even the longest winter eventually yields to spring. The snow melts, the air softens, blossoms return. In the same way, no grief, no struggle, no disappointment is permanent. I once met a man who lost the job he had held for 20 years. The shock was crushing. For weeks, he couldn't sleep. He worried about bills, about his identity, about whether he still had worth. But slowly, through support and reflection, he reconnected with an old love, teaching. He began tutoring young students in his community, and his eyes lit up in a way the office never gave him. Looking back, he said losing his job wasn't the end, it was the beginning of a truer chapter. Here lies the paradox. We suffer not because things change, but because we resist that change. We cling to moments of joy, trying to stretch them endlessly. We clutch onto relationships or identities that no longer fit. And in that grasping, we create our own pain. The small lesson here is simple. When we accept impermanence, we learn to hold life lightly. Joy becomes sweeter because we know it's temporary. Sorrow becomes bearable because we know it won't last. Peace comes not from control, but from trust in life's constant flow. So the next time you find yourself in struggle, whisper, "This too will pass." And when joy fills your heart, whisper it again, "This too will pass." Both reminders free you from despair and from attachment so you can meet the present with gratitude instead of fear. And once you truly see impermanence, another truth begins to shine. If everything outside us is always changing, where can we find a peace that doesn't fade? The answer lies in listening to the quiet teacher we often overlook, silence itself. Part 7. Letting go of control, the gentle strength. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to control life, the more it seems to slip away? It's like trying to hold the wind in a jar. The harder you try, the more impossible it becomes. We chase control because it gives us the illusion of safety. If we can manage every detail, maybe we won't get hurt. But Buddhism reminds us that control is often just another form of attachment. And the truth is, life will never fully bend to our will. I once met a father who tried to control every part of his teenage son's life, his friends, his hobbies, even his clothes. The more rules he set, the more distant and rebellious his son became. Finally, exhausted, he stopped gripping so tightly. He began listening instead of demanding, and to his surprise, their relationship softened. Letting go did not weaken him, it deepened their bond. And it's not just in families. I've known people who micromanaged every moment at work, terrified of mistakes. Instead of creating order, their control created stress for themselves and for everyone around them. Only when they allowed space for imperfection did the team breathe easier, and true collaboration began. Here's the small lesson. Control is heavy. Trust is light. Real strength doesn't come from forcing life to follow our script, it comes from meeting life as it is. Letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom. So tomorrow, when you feel yourself tensing up, trying to control someone's reaction, or every outcome of the day, pause. Take a deep breath. Whisper to yourself, I cannot control everything, but I can choose how I meet this moment. That is gentle strength. And once we learn to loosen our grip, another question arises. If we're no longer clinging to control, where do we stand? The answer is surprising peace comes not from firm ground, but from learning to rest in groundlessness itself. Part 8. Becoming a cause of peace in daily life. Have you ever noticed how one calm person can change the mood of an entire room? Peace is contagious. It doesn't stay locked inside, it spreads, quietly shaping the energy of everyone around us. In Buddhism, the practice is not only to calm our own hearts, but also to become a gentle source of calm for others. Yet many people believe they have to do something grand to bring peace. Organize a movement, solve global problems, or make huge sacrifices. But the truth is, peace often begins in the smallest, simplest acts. I remember a woman who worked at the front desk of a crowded hospital. Every day, she faced long lines, ringing phones, and anxious patients. Yet she greeted each person with a steady voice, a patient smile, and a moment of eye contact that said, I see you, one patient once told her. Talking to you is the first time I've felt calm today. She didn't heal their illness, but she softened their fear. Her peace was like a lantern in a storm, quiet, steady, and deeply human. Here's the small lesson. Peace multiplies when it is shared. You don't need grand gestures. When you choose patience instead of irritation, kindness instead of judgment, or a smile instead of silence, you become a cause of peace. These ripples may seem invisible, but like a pebble dropped into water, they travel farther than you can see. So tomorrow morning, whisper to yourself, let me be the cause of peace today. Then notice the opportunities life gives you: a tense moment in traffic, a tired cashier, a family member who needs your patience. Every one of these moments is a chance to practice peace in action. And as we begin to live this way, a deeper question arises. If peace is something we can radiate, where does it truly begin? The answer lies in turning to the mind itself and realizing that you are not your thoughts. Part 9. Common pitfalls on the path of peace. Why is it that even when we try so hard to stay peaceful, frustration or doubt still sneaks in? The truth is, the path of peace has its own hidden traps, common pitfalls that quietly pull us away from calm. The first is perfectionism. Many people think peace means never feeling anger, sadness, or fear again. So when those emotions arise, they feel like failures. But peace doesn't demand perfection. Even monks with decades of practice still feel irritation. The difference is that they notice it, breathe with it, and gently return. Another trap is comparison. I once knew a man in a meditation group who couldn't sit still. Each week, he looked around at others sitting quietly and thought, I'm not cut out for this. Everyone else is more peaceful than me. His face showed frustration, his shoulders tense. One evening, the teacher leaned over and whispered, the fact that you notice your restlessness is already awareness. That is peace beginning. In that moment, the man's eyes softened. He realized he wasn't failing, he was already on the path. And then there's the pitfall of avoidance, mistaking peace for denial. I think of a mother who told me she stayed calm during arguments at home. But really, She was burying her hurt and smiling on the surface, while inside she carried a storm. True peace isn't pretending. It's the courage to face pain with compassion and clarity. Instead of hiding it away, here's the small lesson. Stumbling into these traps doesn't mean you failed, means you're human. Each time you notice a pitfall, you're already stepping back onto the path. Peace is not a perfect state to achieve once and for all. It's a practice of returning again and again, with patience and kindness. And once we learn to walk this path with fewer illusions, another truth becomes clear. Peace doesn't end with us. It ripples outward, shaping the lives of everyone we touch. That is the deeper power we'll explore next. Part 10. Returning home each night, a daily reflection. Each night offers us a chance to return home, not just to our house or our bed, but to ourselves. The day may have been full of noise, deadlines, conversations, and emotions, but before we close our eyes, there is a sacred pause waiting for us, a moment to look back, breathe, and come home to peace. In Buddhism, reflection at the end of the day is like closing the circle. It helps us see the seeds we planted through our words, our thoughts, and our actions. Some were seeds of peace, some perhaps of impatience or worry. The point is not to judge, but to notice. Awareness itself is already growth. I once spoke with a man who ended each evening with a simple question. Did I cause more peace or more tension today? At first, many nights felt heavy. He noticed how often stress, hurry, or irritation had shaped his interactions. But instead of sinking into guilt, he took these moments as reminders. Slowly, he began adjusting small things, breathing before speaking in frustration, listening more deeply, smiling more often. Months later, he said, "My nights feel lighter now, because I know I tried to bring peace, even in small ways." Here's the small lesson. Reflection is not about perfection. It's about coming home to yourself with honesty and kindness. When we take even 2 minutes to sit quietly, breathe, and look back on the day, we prepare the heart for rest. We remind ourselves that tomorrow is another chance to practice presence, compassion, and peace. And so, as you prepare to close your eyes tonight, I invite you to ask gently, what seeds did I plant today? Then let go, trusting that awareness itself is enough. If this message touched you, I warmly invite you to join our community here at Wisdom Quiet. Like this video if it brought you peace. Subscribe so we can keep walking this path together. Share it with someone who may need calm tonight. And let me know your reflections in the comments below. Your voice matters here. This is not the end of the journey. It's just another return home. And tomorrow we begin again.